on a good note. And speaking of which, we are all waiting to see to it that at least the stalemate that has been ongoing in regards to sharing the revenue across different counties will be addressed. Is it the day of reckoning? Is a question of wait and see. A story that we'll be following up on just to see to it what it will be like or where it will end us. And most importantly, we will be having a candid discussion on what way Mulembe Nation this beautiful morning, as we'll be having the guest of the day later on the current affairs segment, Secretary General for Ford Kenya, that is Dr. Simiyu Eseli, who will be delving deep or telling us some more on what it is that the leaders of Western Kenya are doing to ensure that we are able to attain, or they are able to attain, the Mulembe unity finally. If yes or no is a question of wait and see, even as it remains elusive, as many have argued. We have so much in store for you. We also have the newspapers. We'll be taking you through that alongside two of my guests who will be joining me via Skype, and I'll get to introduce them as we proceed. But importantly also, we have so much that has been prepared by very own team, the editorial team right here, TV47, and we'll get you through all these stories. And later on, we also want to speak to the couples towards the last minutes or the last laps of the program. That is the last segment, 8 to 9 a.m. We ask you, as couples out there, what are you doing at this time of COVID-19? A majority of people say that this is the time that they have broken up because simply, it's hard to be far apart and still maintain the relationship. Some of the students who date people in school, but then schools have been away, or we've been away from schools for the longest of time. What are you doing to keep your fire burning or your flame burning or to maintain your relationship? Share your experiences and we get to sample them as we continue. Importantly, that you interact with us. #Morning Cafe at Linda_Alela at TV47KE. We'd love to hear from you what it is that you think about the conversations that we'll be having this morning, and we'll get to sample some of your comments as we proceed with the show. Also, we'll be having the numbers to call later on your screen and the SMS short code. So drop those messages and let's be part of this conversation. Let's kickstart by taking a look at these stories. President Uhuru Kenyatta has ordered the bars to be closed indefinitely as a measure to curb COVID-19 in the country. In the new measures issued yesterday, no sale of alcohol will be allowed in eateries and restaurants for the next 30 days. And as Andrew Kilemi now reports, the president has also extended the curfew days for the further 30 days.
The government is increasingly getting worried by the rising COVID-19 curve. Barely 21 days after the cessation of movement was lifted, and the curve seems to grow bigger. The president, after consulting with the Council of Governors, has been forced to extend curfew by a further 30 days.
It's time for each and every one of us to get realistic. We must be realistic as parents. We must be realistic as brothers and sisters. We must be realistic as colleagues. We must be realistic as neighbors. We need to look around each other and to ask ourselves, what is my responsibility to those around me? What is my responsibility to those that I love and care about?
Bars will remain closed until further notice, with those who will defy risking a cancellation of their licenses.
That there shall be no sale of alcoholic beverages or drinks in eateries and restaurants across the territory of the Republic of Kenya, effective midnight today for the next 30 days.
The Inspector General of Police will be required to file weekly return of all bars whose licenses have been withdrawn. The president further amended the closing time for eateries from 8 p.m. to 7 p.m. for the next 30 days.
Inspector General of Police shall ensure that his officers spare no mheshimiwa, no individual, irregardless of social status or rank, who is either out after curfew without being an essential worker, or who flaunts the health protocols that have been set out.
The Ministry of Health has also been advised to develop a protocol to temporarily retain retired health workers and ICU staff to support the medical staff. The President calling on Kenyans to take personal responsibility in the fight against COVID-19.
The power, therefore, is in our hands, yours and mine. We, individually and collectively, are the ones who have the power to save. I continue to say, wear your mask, wash your hands, keep your distance.
The COVID-19 infections have been increasing after the President lifted the ban on cessation of movement early this month. Andrine Kilemi for TV 47.
Further, President Uhuru Kenyatta has issued a warning to the political class that they will not be spared if they defy the containment measures issued by the government. The president was speaking in the presence of CS Eugene Wamalwa and Kakamega Governor Wycliffe Oparanya, who have been holding political meetings in the western region. Nano Cloren reports.
President Uhuru Kenyatta, in a harsh and authoritative tone, gave out a strict directive on politicians who have been defying the Ministry of Health's directives on COVID-19 with political gatherings. The Police Inspector General, Mr. Mutiambai, has been instructed not to spare anyone regardless of any social or political status when found breaching curfew and health protocols.
Inspector General of Police shall ensure that his officers spare no mheshimiwa, no individual, irregardless of social status or rank, who is either out after curfew without being an essential worker, or who flaunts the health protocols that have been set out.
Devolution CS Eugene Wamalwa and Governor Wycliffe Oparanya, who were present during the state address, are among those who have been leading political meetings in Western Kenya in the recent past. President Uhuru defending his move to take some of the measures taken, terming them as a mandate of addressing its citizens with the honest information regarding COVID-19. He, however, took issue with some countries that have not been disclosing their numbers of COVID-19 infections. Tanzania is among the countries purportedly hiding COVID-19 figures from its citizens.
Tusijilinganishe na kusema kwingine hakuna, kwingine hakuna. Kwa nini sisi tuko wengine hawana? Nikumbushe wa Kenya, kuishi kwa demokrasia, nchi ambaye iko na demokrasia, nchi ambaye iko na uhuru wa wanahabari, sisi kama taifa hatuna nguvu ya kuficha chochote.
The president insisted on personal responsibility to Kenyans in curbing COVID-19. Nanok Lauren, TV 47.
And a section of Jubilee senators drawn from across the political divide have met to iron out the differences on the ongoing revenue sharing standoff. The meeting coming just after ODM boss Raila Odinga and his wiper counterpart Kalonzo Musyoka called on the Senate to adopt the Commission on Revenue Allocations formula. And as Mwangi Maina now reports, the Senate is set to vote on the formula today.
The Jubilee senators drawn from the political divide met at a city hotel in what they termed as trying to iron out the differences ahead of tomorrow's sitting. The meeting included senators who have been perceived to oppose the disputed formula.
Members of the Jubilee coalition to try to continue building consensus to see what is the best way forward, because we intend to move that motion tomorrow to determine the third basis for county revenue sharing amongst counties. So we are continuing with our discussions. We hope to come up with a good formula, with a consensus, so that tomorrow we do not have an acrimonious vote. So today we came very selected members of Jubilee coalition. Not everyone was invited, but we plan to do a more inclusive meeting maybe tomorrow, so that we come up with one clear position on the way forward.
The Deputy President, William Ruto, had early Monday morning broken his silence on the ongoing county revenue sharing standoff. On his Twitter handle, the Deputy President said the ongoing revenue formula debate is unnecessarily divisive. He added that the Constitution envisages fair and equitable sharing for all resources. The DP says that Senate must structure a win-win formula that is sensitive to proposals made without hurting any county. The DP has been accused of pushing senators from his Jubilee wing to oppose the formula. ODM leader Raila Odinga, in a statement to newsrooms, called on senators to pass the recommendation by the Commission for Revenue Allocation, CRA. He said it was time the current stalemate was resolved so as to allow the country to move forward and focus on tackling the COVID-19 pandemic. He added that the concerns currently being raised by senators opposing the proposed revenue formula should instead be forwarded to the CRA for consideration in its future recommendations.
Raila is trying to play politics.
Correct.
He is trying to play safe.
Correct.
He knows he does not want his people to support the committee's report.
Correct.
And the best way for him now to come out, because he has seen that this has put a strain on his handshake and purported cooperation with the Jubilee Party.
Yes.
So he's now brought a strange formula that has not been brought to the floor of the House, talking about that is the direction to go. I can tell you for a fact, for Nakuru, we will be losing about almost 500 million if I went with the CRA formula. So I'll tell you for a fact, there is no way I'm going to support that.
There is no new formula. The formula we have before the floor of the Senate is the committee report of the finance and budgeting on that generation formula, and we are supporting. On that basis, it is population-driven.
We shall not have a formula whereby Kakamega benefits and our neighbors, Vihiga, are losing. We have crafted a formula that is going to amicably sort out this quagmire. A formula that is going to make sure that all counties benefit.
Wiper Party boss Kalonzo Musyoka, on his part, is proposing population be used in the revenue sharing, saying the money is meant to benefit the people. Kalonzo is further proposing that the revenue sharing should take into serious consideration population parameters, since the funds are meant for use by the people. He further proposed an increase in the money going to the Equalization Fund, whose purpose is to cushion marginalized counties. Kalonzo also wants the law governing administration for the Equalization Fund presently before the Senate to be fast-tracked and urged county assemblies to move swiftly to impeach any county governor found culpable for misappropriation of funds.
It is not right that the senators work so hard, fight so hard for the governors at the county level to receive funds. And yet when they do deliver, they are not even supposed to oversight to the same, because the attempt to oversight, it is seen like interference again by the same Senate. Therefore, on this note, I want to stand with the Senate and urge that they do the right thing and also ensure that they also follow this oversight role.
Senators are set to Tuesday afternoon to vote on the formula that has been postponed for 5 times now. A section of Jubilee senators had threatened to withdraw their support for the BBI if their NASA counterparts will not support the disputed third generation formula. Mwangi Maina, TV47, Nairobi.
Thanks, Mwangi Maina, for that report. Now, the debate still on the revenue sharing formula has drawn sharp reactions from leaders across the country, with some leaders from the Mount Kenya region drumming up support for a 1 man, 1 shilling, 1 vote. Now, the leaders had even threatened to pull out of the BBI process if their NASA counterparts will not support the disputed formula. But what is in the numbers against their locations across the country? Mombi Chege with the details.
As the revenue sharing on the 316.5 billion shillings amongst the 47 counties continues to elicit mixed reactions in the Senate, counties with high populations stand to gain the most if the disputed formula will be passed on Tuesday. According to ODM leader Raila Odinga and his Wiper counterpart Kalonzo Musyoka, the counties with more people should get a higher share. The debate has put the Mount Kenya leaders on the spot against other regions, with some leaders accusing the deputy president of pushing his senators to reject the formula. The counties in the Mount Kenya region, with a population of 7.5 million people, is proposed to receive 4.39 billion shillings collectively, with all the counties in the region gaining, except for the Rakanidi, which is set to lose 367 million shillings. The eastern region counties of Kitui, Machakos and Makueni, with a population of 3.5 million people, will receive 1.4 billion shillings in total, with Makueni County being the biggest loser in the region. Machakos County is, however, set to gain in their allocation. Counties with huge landmass but low population, especially in the northeastern region, with a combined population of 3.2 million people, will be allocated a collective 8.2 billion shillings, with counties like Mandera and Marsabit losing close to 1.9 billion shillings each. The Rift Valley region, with the highest population of 12.2 million people, is set to benefit with 7.2 billion shillings. Western counties, with a total population of 5 million people, will be allocated a total of 2.8 billion shillings, with Vihiga County appearing to be the biggest loser in the region. Nyanza and Coast Region will receive 2.1 billion shillings and 4.9 billion shillings respectively, with a total population of 6.2 million and 4.3 million respectively, with a section of leaders from the Coast Region terming the distribution formula as a threat to devolution. Nairobi County, with a population of 3.2 million, is proposed to receive 21.2 billion shillings, gaining 5.4 million shillings. Nairobi Senator Johnson Sakaja, however, urging the senators to oppose the formula. Representatives from county sparse population have outrightly opposed the formula, arguing that if adopted, their regions will lose up to 17 billion shillings cumulatively. Mumbichege, TV47.
And these are also the stories that have been captured on the newspapers. So we take a look at the People Daily this morning. Joining me to expound on the newspapers, to review the newspaper, is Robert Nyakundi, who's a lead consultant at NACUWERN. And we also have Andrew Kamoche, who's a youth leader. Good evening, gentlemen. Good morning, sorry.
Morning.
I think I'm still asleep, right?
Morning.
All right, good to have you guys. Thank you so much for your time. And we go straight to the bone of contention, or the issue at hand, on the revenue sharing, which has also been captured on page 2 of the People Daily, but also on the front page. And here we are. Senators vow to defy Raila on revenue sharing. And the president calls a Jubilee PG meeting ahead of this crucial vote in the House today. This has been ongoing for a long time. Do you foresee a scenario where today we're going to get answers? Today, finally, the senators will agree on something moving forward. And what will it be in your own view as it stands today? Robert.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. Okay. It is quite an important time in this country at this moment in time, and this debate has been raging for quite a while. And one has to ask themselves a certain important question: why are we having haggling, and the debate is taking probably a certain way? There are people who are pro and others who are against. I would like to think that it is important to realize that it is because of the people that we have revenue allocation for these counties. And that should be the first thing that should feature when the debate will be discussed today. And quite honestly, as a Kenyan who's been alive in this country for quite a while, I feel it is a selfish debate when leaders cannot agree on how to distribute resources across the country.
Right.
But be that as it may, the one man, one vote, one shilling, as they call it, is something that I would not really look or feel that is important, because that in itself promotes equality, but does not promote equity. If they would think on voting on equity, whereby they are opening the field, a level playing field for everybody, the countries which are disenfranchised to catch up, the counties that are marginalized to catch up. I think that is what I would vote favor that.
All right, let's look in Andrew Kamoche. What are your expectations today, now that everyone has their view on what exactly these monies should be shared? But eventually, it is important that we have a solution, because as it stands, activities are at a standstill at the level of the county.
Well, either way, there will be an agreement whether to oppose or reject it. But then it's a bit selfish of all leaders to be fighting and arguing over, these counties deserve more. If at all we have to increase allocation for some counties, we should be talking about increasing the money allocated to county governments and not having cutting off some money from certain counties which have been marginalized for the longest time since independence. And the main aim for the evolution was to have development across all areas equally. Again, we shouldn't also be looking at population. We should be looking at how much revenue do certain counties collect. So when allocating, can they sustain themselves without getting too much from the government, from the national government?
All right, the conversation is ongoing. Until that time, we get to hear from the Senate, and we'll be delving deep data also on the same, just getting to understand what this revenue shares mean in this way, or what these formulas that are being proposed mean, and what it is that the CAO formula also presents in what, of course, was supported yesterday by Right Honorable Raila Odinga. Big move, and as senators also have said in this current state, or in this story that has been captured on the People Daily, that senators vow to defy Raila's as Uhuru calls for the PG. We can only wait to see what will take center stage, whether indeed they'll go by what has been proposed or has been fronted or endorsed by President Uhuru Kenyatta. And the opposition chief pointed out that the resources currently allocated were reasonable if corruption was checked and counties put up measures to raise their own revenue. And he says that we must also focus on encouraging counties to raise own source of revenues from the economic activities within these respective counties, and demanding a prudent usage of those resources. We delve deep into that later on as we proceed, and of course is indeed a dilemma, as many leaders have come in to weigh in on the same. That is Kinjuri right there, equally weighing in his sentiments on the same. Religious leaders have come on board to address this, just so we would end the stalemate or the dispute that is ongoing. Let's go back to the front page again and take this story that has, elicited mixed reactions, but equally gotten us to that point where we see that the government is indeed focused on dealing with COVID-19 in the country. Yesterday's address by President Uhuru Kenyatta, a wake-up call to Kenyans, and he says that the nationwide curfew will be extended by 30 more days, and bars orders to shut down, and no sale of alcohol in bars and restaurants, yes, amid the shutdown. This, he says, has highly attributed to the surge of COVID-19 cases in the country based on the reckless behavior that is being played out by the youths out there and most of the people, and getting to that point where they continue to spread the virus even further. President Uhuru Kenyatta's address yesterday, he says that, you know what, if we continue this way, the damage that has already been done will even be worse. Robert.
Thank you very much once again. Yesterday we had the president give his address, to the 10th address since the COVID-19 pandemic began. And it comes in the backdrop of a meeting that he had done with the governors of this country, the 47 of them. Yeah. And he reported that 70% of the counties are reporting that they are able to deal with the impact that would come, mitigating against the pandemic. However, I'd like to say the measures that the president outlined yesterday are basically throwing the ball back to you and I as Kenyans, this country, to take cognizance of the fact that we've been having this virus since March. We've been able to learn to live with it. We are starting to learn how to live with it. We need to, the Ministry of Health guidelines, wearing the mask, social distance, washing of hands, and these simple basic rules. And it was basically a reminder from the president that each and every member, each and every individual, each and every citizen has a responsibility for them and for their significant others. Also, what I took out of that is that this is a president who is saying that his government might not be able to have enough resources to police everybody to take cognizance of their own health, their own wealth. In that case, therefore, he's like saying that, now, watu wajipange, watu wajichunge, but most importantly, is to realize that this is a pandemic that does not choose. It does not know who you are. It does not know if you're male or female. It does not know if you're rich or poor. And at the end of the day, it's a common sense thing, and we all need to just think about it and work around it, because at the end of the day, it's about you and I. There's no police who's going to come at your doorstep. That's what he said. And I think the measures were fine. They did not close up the country again. I feel that that was a great move, because we need to progress economically. All he was saying is that we need to take social action for our own responsibilities or our own action. And I feel that he spoke very, very well. On closing of bars and eateries and restricting a bit of access to alcohol, I think that was a great move, because, of course, we know if you're intoxicated, what you're likely to do. I think he did well. It was a good speech. I liked it. It means that he's beginning to know how, he's getting around into dealing. However, one point I'll point out, he failed to discuss, to say, to tell what his government is doing in the health sector, what needs to be done, what measures are being imposed or are being put out there to help the frontline workers, the doctors, nurses, the people who work in the medical industry, and what he intends to do about it, what his government is doing about it, because at the end of the day, these are the soldiers who are on the front line. He said this is a war, and the soldiers at the front line are the people in the medical industry and the health sector. He did not really speak about it. I felt that you should have said something about it.
All right. Kamoche, why do you think Kenyans are so much so, not listening to what the president is saying? I mean, it's not the first time that he's saying that, this is solely responsible. Again, he came yesterday to reiterate on that. Why do we have to push the government or the president to that point? Why can't we just abide by the measures that have been presented? If at all we want to be in the best of state to, capture the spread or to stop the spread, and even better to ensure that we still are able to, continue with the usual economic activities as requested by most or majority of us.
Well, I think we lack in good leadership, on matters good leadership in this nation. Because once the measures were put in place and were told you can't have meetings of large crowds and all, some politicians still went out and practiced and continued having large meetings, large gatherings. So for a normal Kenyan, once you look at, you see a politician hosting a meeting, be like, no, there's no COVID. We are being just fooled and taken in rounds. And then secondly, again, the policing, the security sector has also failed Kenyans, because it has been, profits over health. It's been how much are we making? And there are so many sectors that, whether we lock down bars, whether we, close eateries early on, there are so many sectors that are still a huge risk to this nation in terms of health. We should have addressed the transport sector as well, because if you use public transport in this nation, you must have realized that most buses and matatus are right now, they are not carrying the normal parts that we were told. It was like half. Right now, most of them are just it's reckless. In bus stages, it's reckless. People are there's no corona, how whatever they are saying doesn't exist on the ground, because look at them. They are still hosting meetings. They are still going back to their backyards and trying to drum up support for themselves in readiness for the next elections. So it trickles down from the top leaders down to Kenyans.
Well, that's pretty much unfortunate to note, but we keep on reiterating that it's important, that we abide by these rules and measures that have been set on board, so that at least we are able to, equally take part in the fight against COVID-19. This captured on page 4 extensively. and also some other stories in relation to the same doubts raised over latest corona orders. That is the orders yesterday by President Uhuru Kenyatta, and also medics crying out foul that still it is tough for them, even as a majority of them now, or many of them now get to that point where they're infected, and even worse, they have lost a couple of numbers to COVID-19. This also has been captured on the front page of the Standard newspaper. I'm not able to get a clear view of it, but Joy as nurse with COVID-19 delivers babies. That's an interesting story. And also Uhuru strikes at bars and leaders behaving badly amid, of course, the rising cases of COVID-19, and also on the revenue stalemate, the epic failure of probably the faces that have been captured right there. President Uhuru Kenyatta, Right Honorable Raila Odinga, Deputy President William Ruto, that is Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka, and Senate Speaker Ken Lusaka, and finally Amani Coalition leader, that is Musalia Mudavadi. And still looking at this, bars marked epicenters, and of course a picture of Senator Johnson Sakaja, just reminding us of the unfortunate events that took center stage at that particular night that got him arrested, though he came out to apologize for that. But on social media, on a lighter note, gentlemen, Kenyans are sort of in shock and in awe. President Uhuru Kenyatta had to strike on alcohol. And they actually say that, Sakaja, my friend, utalipa vibaya sana when it comes to 2022, because it is you who's made the president to take this direction. Is it how, does that show how much we love the mug or the bottle? Or it was a good move? And actually, most of the people who sell alcohol also, crying out foul, because they say a majority of Kenyans, almost, like 40% right now, have wines and spirits, have bars, and, it is bringing food to the tables of numerous people.
Well, the super senator is getting a little bit of help from social media, from Kenyans around the country. And well, he messed up. He messed up really. Being found outside, within lockdown hours, out there in a bar, was quite wrong for a social leader. Somebody who's the chairman of the COVID-19 response team, I think, in Senate, if I'm not wrong, that goes against every important leadership, at this time from such a person. So, well, if indeed we all love the people, some of us partake, others do not. But we like to point a finger at somebody, and at this point in time, I feel the super senator has to take the fall on this one, because he makes it up for all of us. But I do not think the president really, it was a backlash. Akisema waheshimiwa, they need to respect curfew, and they need to adhere to the curfew rules. He was talking about these people and others. We've seen others in Western Kenya, others in Rift Valley, and like my Andrew said earlier on, these political meetings that are happening, and because somebody is powerful, has a larger rank, is abusing curfew, and to that extent, well, I feel it starts from the top. The back begins from the leaders out there to show a good example to the rest of us Kenyans. And at the end of the day, yes, if in 2022 the super senator to take a fall on this one, reacting.
All right, well, there you go. Andrew, I don't want you to say anything on this because it's an interesting one. And just taking a look at the numbers, pretty much unfortunate. Baringo entering the released, and now making us get to that point where we have 45 counties that officially have, COVID-19 infections recorded, even as the number got to or shot up to 18,042 cases after 440 new cases were tested positive, or new positive tests were gotten or were registered. And a big payday awaits BOM teachers and staff. Government to release money at the end of this month to pay teachers and subordinate staff on public school payrolls. Thousands of these teachers are employed by school boards of management and other support staff who have been going without salaries from their respective institutions for over 3 months now are set to be paid. Good news?
Yeah, that's great news. Because when it was announced that schools will be reopened next year, it was a big blow to teachers who are not directly under the government. But then at least now seeing the government taking initiative and should be part of cushioning, and they should do this till Jan. Should be part of as they continue with Vijana Mtaani. They should also try to see some of these employees who are not directly under them, but then they are working in institutions, public institutions.
All right, and also on a sad note, how inadequate funding could derail school projects. A majority of school projects is pretty much unfortunate, has been captured right extensively on page 8, as some learning institutions will be forced to discard income-generating activities. And you know what is happening at this particular time, especially with the private schools. Indeed, a cause for alarm or for worry, as private school teachers also appeal for upkeep cash, and calling upon the government to at least do something to equally cushion them, because evidently they're out here going without pay, and as declared by the president, by the Ministry of Education, there are likelihoods that they will proceed all the way to January without getting anything. Rising cases of people falling and dying, a new headache for medics. Pretty much unfortunate. Shocking statistics show that after deaths reported in Nairobi, Makueni, Mombasa in last few months, which is pretty much unfortunate scenario, like I had said. And I think, gentlemen, it's important that we take a short break. Briefly, we'll be coming back to wind up in about 3 minutes or so on the newspaper review, because there's still so much, and we'd love that you weigh in on the cartoon edition as we get to call it a day. return of international flights, a morale booster. Kenya got what amounts to a stamp of approval in her efforts to reopen the economy amid COVID-19. And we expect to see to it that, we are able to traverse different parts of the world. But then the question is, in as much as the international flights are open, to where will we be going? Because again, still you find that, most of the countries still are on a lockdown. So we are expected to resume our get our flights able to go across different parts of the world as of August the 1st, as declared by President Uhuru Kenyatta. We were waiting to see whether he's going to, take a different turn on the same yesterday, but it looks like, yes, it remains as it is. Robert, what do you make of this?
Me, I've seen a notice somewhere that up to 6 international airlines have given out notices that they're willing, they're going to resume flights starting August.
Yes.
KLM, Ethiopian.
Yes.
We have Emirates, British, the British Airways. We also have Air France. All of these have said that they are resuming flights. Well,
yes.
It is important indeed that we resume international flights, of course, with measured, looking out for the protocols, because you're going to an international country, a country that is in the midst of a pandemic. And people who are flying out, importantly so, they are going back to work and they're going back to duty and they're going back to other things. It's important for them to realize that they need to be safe, the skies have to be safe, and the landings have to be safe. Now, on that, I would like to know how the government intends to deal with a stringent curfew measure for flights of people coming into the country past 9 p.m. Most of these flights, they come in at around 11 midnight. So are they exempted? And if they're exempted, who is the host? Who the taxi people, for example? Will they be allowed to pick passengers from the airports and to take them home? Will there be a special ticket, a special pass for taxi and cab operators? I don't think they fall under the essential services category. With that as it may, the country has to go on. The economies have to open. Countries have to move on. And I also do not know if there's any restriction against the Chinese airlines, because everybody in the world right now wants to portion blame of the Wuhan virus of COVID-19 and apportion it to China. I've not heard about that. I've not seen if they have resumed. But yes, other international airlines are resuming flights. It is a good move. The country is opening up. Tunaendelea polepole and it's going to be fine right now. Very, very sure.
All right, let's take this one. On this one, come to the cartoon edition. That's what I'm trying to get to. Yes, here we are. We are waiting to see what, of course, the international flights will mean to us on also dealing on revamping the economy. But here we are with the cartoon edition, gentlemen. I don't know how much you're able to see this, but there's a smiling Uhuru, or no, okay, well, not really smiling, but a thinking Uhuru, so to speak, in his thoughts. We're talking about a padlock that has a key, but the padlock is open. On this side, somebody tells him close. On the other side, the other person tells him open. And he is in a limbo. Yesterday's address, in what you have said, Robert, was a good move. Also, Andrew acknowledged that, yes, it was a good move. But it's still a limbo for President Uhuru Kenyatta. Did he adapt, or did he go by that analogy that many said, you know what, the damage is already done, Mr. President. Closing us down would even be worse as it stands. Andrew?
Well, one, I've never seen someone who's thinking while smiling, so that's a weird one. But anyway, I think closing down the nation at this stage would have been so late. Something that should have been done in March, once we reported the first few cases, at least March, April. And so right now it's a bit late. And of course, closing down now major hotspots, it's still not working because people are still sneaking out of the city either way. So at the moment, it's everyone's now. It's everyone's. It's everyone on your own now. And of course, our hospitals are overwhelmed. That's why health experts were like, we need to close close everything down. But we need now. This is a moment where it's up to everyone. We need all to take initiative. So now, as we try to steer, at least revive the economy or keep the economy pushing, because either way, we are not revving in the economy this year. No nation will. Even first world nations, the likes of Sweden and all, haven't been able to do it. And of course, now trying to look at the health sector. So we are. I understand he's in. It's a tricky place for him. But then I think what we have so far is good. Now, sectors that should be looked into, it's like the matatu sector. Of course, now on the flights, I'm still not sure. I'm a bit skeptical on that. Yeah.
And whether, of course, we should
In addition to that, I don't know if I can interject.
Yes, please come in. Come in, and also just remember that this is a delicate matter for President Uhuru Kenyatta, because these advices of closing down come from the sector of health, and on this other hand, open up comes from the economic sector. All key strategic partners and stakeholders on this fight.
Yes, we have ourselves a situation that is not really confusing. We've already had enough time to debate about it, to think about it, to stakeholders to sit and the thinkers to come up with plans. When we started out, when this virus hit the first time, we were doing knee-jerk reactions. But as we've gone on, as each and every day is coming out, we are beginning to see that now the government has better control. The people are understanding better. I'm speaking from the standpoint of being here in Nakuru, for example. It is a bit. It is understood by many people that we have a virus that is going to be with us, and some begin to speculate that it could be with us for the longer term. So we've started to adapt to it, to be resilient, and to know how we can be able to deal with it. So in yesterday's presidential address, closing down the country was never going to be an option.
All right. Well, interesting views right there. And before we get to wind up, gentlemen, I mean, how about we touch on some bit of politics? And Kalonzo's secret pact talk kicks up political storm. We have seen the events of, the Day on Matters Politics and what is happening within the NASA coalition. And Ukambani leaders are now come out, guns blazing, questioning Wiper Bow's credentials. Kalonzo still depicting his nature of what people term as watermelon? Either of you can come in, Andrew.
All right, okay. So, in the recent past, there's been a lot of political debate coming out from the Eastern Province, quite unlikely. We know our brothers from Kamba for being very, very polite and gentlemen. There's a tiff between all the governors against Kalonzo. Kalonzo is perceived to be the kingpin of the Kamba, the Eastern Province back here. And the Governor Ngilu, Governor KK, in my opinion, the incoming president in 2022, and the Machakos Alfred Mutua, have all ganged up against Kalonzo in something perceived as some sort of brinkmanship. It is well understood that Kalonzo Musyoka probably wants to also get into an agreement for 2022, and everybody is beginning to line up. The cards, the chess players, the table is set. People are beginning to shape up and to see what's going to happen in 2022, which position one is going to take, etc. and etc. And it is beginning to be seen from this backyard in the Kamba community. The Kamba governors have sort of feel like Kalonzo has done his 35 years. He has done his 10 years out of politics, 15 years. It's about time, probably let somebody else maybe took over the leadership. They are comparing his leadership of the Eastern, of the Kamba community with Mulu Mutisia and Paul Ngei, and they're asking for 35 years as deputy president under Kibaki's administration, for 35 years as under MP at Sekuru, for 35 years as foreign affairs minister, home affairs in Moi's government. What did you do that you cannot do or you want to do today or now? So everybody wants to Joseph proposition. Mama Ngilu also wants to be heard. Professor Kibuana also wants to be heard. Alfred Mutua has already said he wants to run for president. And I think Kalonzo is dissipating away, and he has already noticed that Nikama is simmering away.
Yeah.
His port is sort of cooling down, and it's going to be a really interesting showdown in the coming days.
Kamoje, are you of the same idea or the same school of thought that Kalonzo is probably done and dusted, and maybe he's just in denial? He probably does not hold the clout as it stands.
Yeah, I think he's just testing waters, to see what can happen. What's the worst scenario for me? Because right now he has lost the whole backing of Ukambani, Mudhama, Mutua, Ngilu, Kivuda. So for him, he needs first to settle, and to at least be a kingpin in his area. Because what we have seen in most leaders in this nation, you're first a kingpin in your home, and then you come to the nation to convince Kenyans that, what, I need your votes now. But then you can't come to convince Kenyans while you have everyone against you from your own area. And just an addition on what Robert said, if we were to ask the same questions of every politician in this nation, what have you done in your backyard? What have you done in the last 10 years also in governmental? We will be very far as a nation right now, because most of these politicians that we see, they will be nowhere close to leadership.
All right. Okay. Well, that aside, very sad report. Okay. Well, I don't want to say sad, but a report that is worth discussing, and one would want to know what could have caused this. Prison break, a puzzle of daring inmates escaping police cells. A majority of the convicts who break out often win trust of warders as they meticulously plan escape. So at least 10 inmates, including a British national, have escaped from police custody in unclear circumstances in the last 10 days. The trend that has even baffled security officers involves some inmates who had manifested that they had reformed and rehabilitated. In 3 of the cases reported Wansigishu, Nyamira and Shanzu, the police officers in charge of the suspects who escaped could not explain how this happened. Robert.
This is just common sense. An inside game. How are you breaking out of prison? I mean, from police. I don't understand. There's not much to talk about of this one. There's wanafunguliwa tu wanatoka. That's just an inside thing. I don't know. Maybe, but that's what I would say. It's an insider thing. Police are colluding with these guys, maybe through handouts or whatever.
Well, is it an insider game? Sorry to cut you short, but is it an insider game? Reports from police headquarters indicate that at least 5 other escapes are currently being investigated, and that the escapes have even baffled security officers. And I think it is absurd to, so to speak, Andrew, when we talk of a scenario where, yes, you know how tight the situation is in most of the prisons, that is hard to even get to see your own, family member in the event that you're going out there. And I mean, just how do they get to that level where they're able to escape amid all this tight security? And even worse, it shocks the security guys also.
This is what happens when the citizens lose trust in a force. Because now we can't rule out anything. We can't rule out, an insider job, or maybe people are consuming too much Western content and they have found ways on how they can, trespass and get out. So I don't know. I haven't been to a prison, so I wouldn't really tell how good or bad measures are. But then you can't rule out anything. Whether it's an insider job or it's people finding new ways to get out. Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, let's just hope that this can be tamed, because then again, it needs to be clear that these people are being released or are going out to the society having changed or reformed, as highlighted right there, because it is important that this is addressed. And also another report right here, as we get to expound some more on this. Before we even get to this story, let's celebrate my sister company, Mount Kenya University bags global recognition for interventions to clean. So Mount Kenya University, that is MKU, has earned the university global recognition after it was feted with an international award following its students' efforts and interventions to ease access to clean drinking water and sanitation services in rural areas. Of course, this institution that is based in Thika Town bagged the Telluride Network Innovative Civic Engagement Award 2020, which has a 2 million monetary award after it distributed more than 10,000 water backpacks and treatment of over 1,000 giga-infested pupils in Marsabit and Kilifi counties. Let's celebrate that one as we get to wind up on the newspaper review. Gentlemen, this report here that concerns are being raised over low use of birth control pills in the country. Could this be informing the numerous cases that we are having right here of unwanted pregnancies?
Reproductive health care in this country is up to date. Yeah. Contraceptives are being used today more than ever before. But behavioral science, probably, I would say. I don't know, maybe we can, Andrew can help me on this one as well and see if
or
we
it's
can
considered
agree.
Girls, it is considered a girls' affair.
Yeah, is it, well, probably you can tell us, is it because of this the current situation? Our children are idle, our girls in the universities are idle, and there are a little bit more of these activities going on. Not necessarily a question of contraceptives, but just behavior. So I can just comment and say, tabia labda zime watu wanaendelea.
Our morals have collapsed. The perpetrators are obviously men. Andrew, as we get to wind up on this, I am not going to weigh in because I am not allowed anyway.
You know, Robert, taking this back to the female gender is quite wrong because it's two-way. You know, men take part as well, and so I think we shouldn't be talking about birth control, you know, methods and low use of them. We should be talking about zero morals. We should be talking about, you know, how do we go back to these villages? How do we go back to these counties and talk to these young people, both men and women, to stop this? Because either way, in one way or the other. These control pills will not guarantee that, you know what, they'll stop pregnancy. So it's two-way. And we need to go back to the villages, mentor these people, talk to them, and start, you know, projects and find something for them. Because right now it's long holidays and it's fire burning in them. So yeah. We need to do it.
And I think we're going to wind up that, gentleman, on that bit of fire burning. Robert Nyakundi, lead consultant, NACU1, and Andrew Kamoche, who's a youth leader. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for the great insights as we get to wind up on the newspaper review. We're crossing over to a different segment altogether, that segment that you've all been waiting for. Ford Kenya Secretary General Dr. Simiyu Eseli is in the house already to expound some more on which way Mulembe Nation, even as he also weighs in on the current state of activities in the country as we deal with COVID-19 and most importantly, the stalemate that is being witnessed right now as to the revenue share. What will happen today? Indeed, it is the day of reckoning. We get to get answers of that and much more later, of course, on our subsequent programs based on what the sitting of the Senate will be all about. After this short break, we are back with more. Remember, I'm inviting you to interact with us. #Morning Cafe. Call in. The numbers will be rolling down on your screen, or you can as well drop your SMSs and we get to engage Mheshimiwa in the event that you have any questions for him. After this break, we're back. enough is enough will not merely be touting other political parties. Disgruntled with playing a second fiddle, the leaders of Western Kenya or the Western region, the Mulembe Nation, say that it is time they also find their space into the high seat. Raft of meetings, realignments, and firing of shots is what has characterized the activities in this particular region in the past few, political days, so to speak. Awarding them condemnation, especially at this time of COVID-19, because they've been told that they are flaunting the rules, so they are going against the rules that have been set by the Ministry of Health to address the issue of COVID-19. But have the people of Mulembe Nation been wrestling themselves for the longest of time, such that they have not been able to realize that the enemy is coming? And who is the enemy of Mulembe? The elusive Mulembe unity is what we're discussing this beautiful morning. And joining me, Dr. Eseli Simiyu. He is the Secretary General of Ford Kenya Party and also Tingaren Member of Parliament, to expound some more on whether indeed the Mulembe Nation is able to attain the unity that has been elusive. And thank you so much, Mheshimiwa, for finding time.
Thank you for
important also that you interact with us. You be part of this discussion. It's time for you to ask Mheshimiwa anything that you'd want to ask him in regards to Mulembe Nation and also matters politics in the country, because besides being a Mulembe leader, he equally is a national leader. Hashtag Morning Cafe, the numbers to call running down on your screen, or SMS short code also running down on your screen. Engage us this beautiful morning. We'd love to hear what you have to say on the same. And having been a Western leader for the longest of time possible, Mheshimiwa, one then would ask, why is it that we still talk about the elusive Mulembe unity? Does it make you feel proud to have this conversation or to even talk about that?
I think I'm lucky in the sense that the constituency I represent is actually fairly cosmopolitan.
Yes.
Even within the Mulembe Nation.
Yes.
In the sense that all the Mulembe Nation are actually 18 sub-tribes.
Yes.
And all these sub-tribes are settled in my constituency because it's a settlement scheme. So I guess I'm in a better position to talk about this. One thing that ails Western Kenya is that these 18 sub-tribes are actually what we would say the point where divisions come in. Because when you look at the 18 sub-tribes, each of them have got different numbers.
Yes.
And the largest number by far are the Bukusu, who occupy, I would say, two and a quarter counties. And then the others follow. And that has always brought a rift. And if you realize from historical point, the leaders of the Luhya nation, if you start from the pre-independence time, initially was Awori, who then was beaten by Muliro. Masinde Muliro took over that mantle.
Yeah.
Then after Masinde Muliro came Wamalwa Kijana, and in between we had Moses Mudamba Mudavadi as the leader, the purported leader. You realize that in all these demographics, the Bukusu seem to have been ahead.
Yeah.
What we are telling the Bukusu now, where a community that I belong to, is that it doesn't have to be us.
Okay.
It can be anybody, so long as we have a sense of direction. That's what we are telling everybody.
And the factions that are emanating and cropping up, we almost have like 4 factions right now. Is that a message to the Bukusu, really?
Actually, what is happening right now is sad. Because some quarters perceive that Raila Odinga has been controlling the Mulembe Nation.
But is it not the case?
Just let me finish this.
All right.
That he has been getting the lion's share of the vote of the Mulembe Nation ever since the demise of, ever since the end of the Kibaki era. Because Kibaki had a fair share of the Mulembe Nation. In 2002, he got virtually all the Mulembe Nation.
Right.
And in 2007, he got the Bukusu vote. So there's a perception that Raila, therefore, has been controlling. Now, the sad thing is, there's a group that thinks they should remove Raila and put Ruto. So they defeat the whole purpose. So Ruto is angry to substitute Raila. So now the Luhya nation are asking themselves, is it necessary then if we remove Raila as the person controlling our votes, then we now change them to Ruto, what will we have gained?
Yes.
So now their argument is one of us should be the one. And that's where the rivalry is coming in now.
And the key figures, obviously, would not let the other be. And right now we're talking about these factions that we're talking about. The other time we heard that Mohisa Itui just landed, and he's also is an interest of having the lion's share. We're talking of the likes of, your party leader, correct me if I'm wrong, that is Moses Wetangula. We're talking about the likes of ANC leader Musalia Mudavadi. We're talking about the likes of, Oparanya in this particular case. So, I mean, why is it that it is becoming difficult to just identify one person who's going to carry the day? And what are the likelihoods that we're going to root out Musalia Mudavadi?
Well, for us, the majority in Ford Kenya, we removed Wetangula because he was the one trying to supplant.
But he still stands. How does it feel?
To remove Raila and supplant him with Ruto, which we thought was directionless.
All right.
So we'll have to find a way of now harnessing us together to see whether we can rally behind one person. The other difficulty that the Mulembe Nation has, if you remember all these people I've mentioned who have actually carried the flag for the Mulembe Nation, if you look at their history, they have been democratic reformists. People with credentials, reform credentials. Kina Masinde Muliro, all those. But currently, the people angling for leadership lack those credentials. And I think that's where the difficulty is.
Mohisa Itui?
Well, perhaps he might have. But he's still an international.
He's still an international figure, yes. But
so
what if he comes today and,
well,
which is something that he has declared. He comes today and confidently declares that.
Let him come and we see, because what I always argue is this is not going to be a boardroom decision.
Right.
Whoever is going to lead the Mulembe Nation has to come and show that they actually inspire confidence in the whole of the Mulembe Nation. So it will not be a boardroom decision.
Right.
So whoever will come and hit the ground and show the people that they actually care for their interests and that they inspire confidence across the board, that will end up being the leader.
And amongst these leaders that we're talking about, anyone that you can identify and say that would fit the bill that you're talking about?
Well, there are many. Some, as I said, lack any reform credentials, so they don't inspire confidence in the people. Some, their claim to leadership is neither here nor there.
Right.
So, but eventually, one or the other will emerge.
Let's talk about.
It will not be a boardroom decision, because if we put them all here and said there are 6 of them, who of these ones will we choose? I think let the people choose.
As it stands right now, you're in agreement that there is a lacuna in the leadership of Mulembe Nation?
I would say if you look at a community that they rally behind somebody, I would say that there is a lacuna, but this lacuna has been created by ourselves and some outsiders.
All right. Do you suppose that the people themselves, the communities, the common Mwananchi, the Wafula, the Nafula, are really interested in identifying this one person who's going to represent the Mulembe Nation based on the issues that they are facing right now?
That's what I'm saying, that it will not be a boardroom decision.
Yes.
Whoever will come out and inspire confidence in that Wafula, in that Nekesa, you'll find that will carry that person.
Why I'm asking this is because, remember, just the other day, there was some heckling that you faced, correct me if I am wrong, as you allegedly tried to delve into some bit of politics rather than address the issues that were ailing the workers of the sugar industry, the issues and
that
everything.
one I had already addressed the issues of the sugar industry. I think what happened here was it was arranged.
It was arranged?
Yes, it was
Do you
arranged.
Suppose that
So there was. I cannot say why.
Is it not that the citizens are just tired with matters politics?
It was not the citizens. It was a hired crowd, a little hired crowd.
Why would they do that?
Well, it's politics.
Yes.
So, of course, the people who had been there earlier, purportedly speaking for the farmers, and we know who they are.
Who are they? Would you know them? Would you say that?
I wouldn't want to delve into it, but I would like to say that that was a hired crowd, and it was clear. So I cannot.
Would you assume that it was your Moses Wetangula, or party leader, Moses Wetangula, based on what has been playing?
It's possible. I don't put it beyond.
Where does it place the confidence and the grind or the ground of the party?
As far as I know, we have full support of the people.
Yeah.
In fact, those ones who are heckling actually belong to Jubilee.
Okay.
It's very interesting.
Why do you?
So we know them. I mean, we know them. I come from there, so I could tell who is doing what.
So when you're talking about Jubilee, you mean Jubilee Kieleweke or Jubilee Tangatanga? Jubilee Tangatanga.
Yeah. Where Moses Wetangula also belongs.
Is you confidently say that he belongs
sure,
there?
But which MPs does he move around with?
All right.
They are Tangatanga MPs.
Okay. Well, we will come back to that later on. And let's talk about multipartyism, the coming in of multipartyism, the introduction of Ford Kenya, a party that most of the Luyas embraced, a party that most of the Luyas looked at as an outfit that would guarantee them, first of all, getting them to that point of the helm, at the top of the helm. And, yes, there have been arguments that, this has been crafted as though it's a Luya party. Do you agree with that, or do you dispute that?
I dispute the fact that people say it's a Luya party, but all these parties do have their strongholds.
Yeah.
I would argue that the strongholds of Ford Kenya are mainly in the western region,
right,
with a good following in the coast and in the northeastern. So I would say that the reasons why you find that the party has had dwindling following is what I said before.
Yeah.
When the leadership lacks reform credentials and the leadership is just riding on the party because of the history of the party,
right,
then you get this sort of thing.
You're part and parcel of the leadership.
Yes,
what are you doing to streamline that?
That's what we are doing by trying to change the top
By
leadership.
Organizing coups?
Yes.
Organizing
to change the leadership.
All right.
Because if the leadership is not inspiring confidence, remember, if I come from Bungoma County, the then party leader came from Bungoma County, it's inexplicable that of the 9 constituencies in the last election, we only won 3.
Right.
And we know what happened. What happened was giving tickets to the wrong people. And I had been pushed out of the nomination process by a consensus at the National Executive Council meeting, an engineered consensus which the party leader then did not object to, because there was an arrangement as to who will be given tickets to vie.
Right.
And in the process, we lost so many seats. So you realize that uninspiring and I would say something that's not, somebody's not looking at growing in the party. So once we change the leadership, I'm sure we'll have removed that.
That you think would be addressed by, the politics of intolerance and bravado?
It's there. There's the issue of being intolerant and being, megalomaniac to a point.
Will that address the issue?
Yes, I think it will, partly.
All right.
Partly, and then reorganize the party. Because you see, a party like Ford Kenya,
right,
with a very rich history, where many people of my age and so on, and even the younger people who read the history of this country, they find that Ford Kenya had some reason for its existence.
Right.
But when you reach a point where you are neither here nor there, then you lose the inspiration, and that's why you find that most of the other Fords that existed are no longer there.
Right.
But Ford Kenya still exists because of the way it was crafted,
and
in the sense that right now many people don't know, but this party is represented in every constituency.
Just who owns Ford Kenya?
Nobody should own it.
All right.
It should belong to the people. And that's what we are trying to do.
Do you think it belongs to the people?
In fact, what we want to do,
right,
my team, by the time we get to the General Council and the NDC, we also want to review the constitution of Ford Kenya to ensure that anybody who becomes party leader is not going to be there in perpetuity.
Okay.
So we have to craft that constitution properly. Because if you look at the history of Ford Kenya, every transition has had its problems.
Right.
So there's a problem with transition of leadership. We need to craft a constitution that actually removes that problem.
Why do you, the same people, go against the constitution and also what it dictates within the party? For instance, in terms of change of leadership, it should be done after 4 years.
Yes.
Then why is it that this has extended for the longest of time?
Because we've not had elections.
Why?
That's the question.
That's
why.
now the question.
Yes.
You're part and parcel of the party. You're in the party leadership.
Yes, and I tried to get this going. I tried to get this election.
All right, your coup or the coup,
there was so
the
much
planned
opposition.
Coup, the planned coup was prematurely, aborted for that matter.
No, it was not aborted. I think that's the.
Tell us more.
That's what they are saying, but it's not aborted.
Uh-huh.
The fact of the matter is that the National Executive Council, which is entitled to do what it did,
yes,
dismissed Moses Masika Wetangula. There were other things we were supposed to do to complete the removal. He went to the High Court
Right.
and got a conservatory order. A conservatory order does not abort the process. It only delays the process. Yeah.
So this, you suppose, will be delayed until when? And remember, he also has some support from members of the NEC also.
Of course, he has some support. He definitely has some support, but the majority don't support him.
Until when will the party be on this shaky position?
That will depend on how the court acts.
All right. I come back to this question again. Coming in of multipartism and, you know, different regions looking at, you know, how strong different parties are and, you know, believing that these are the parties that are going to take us to that point of the helm. And yes, like you acknowledge, Ford Kenya, you know, has some solid support from Western Kenya region. The wars that continue within the party, if they tend to escalate, how can you guarantee that the people of Mlembe Nation are going to have this as the vehicle that is going to set them to unity?
I think what will happen here, we are all relying on the court's decision.
Yeah.
And I would not like to delve into it, but the earlier it's done, the better, which will be good for the party to prepare itself for 2022.
Yeah.
So yes, we are all waiting for the court's decision. Whatever the court will decide, we'll go with that and move forward.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I'll ask again. Well, this is on a different note. How would you rate the performance of the courts in how they deal with issues and handle of issues that are of interest? For instance, of course, the case of corruption that we keep talking about.
I think for now, I would say that the courts have done well because if on the issue of corruption,
right?
If we
Honorable
want,
Waluke?
if not just Waluke, there are others
Right.
that have not got the same publicity as Waluke's case. But I think I would say that the increased impetus on fighting corruption, I think it's commendable, and we should actually continue in that spirit. Because if we don't, then this country is in trouble.
Yeah.
Because you see, all this is related to politics also. You see, people talk about politics being about interests. But we should realize that if the individual interests become the dominant, not the community interests, then that is not politics, that's conmanship. And that is what has created the corruption in the country.
All right. Lots of allegations on, you know, first of all, let's look at the bigger picture. Africans are saying that, you know, there's always the hand of the West, you know, in running the activities within Africa. That's why Africa has not been able to attain what it is that it would have attained in years.
We cannot blame the West entirely for our failings.
Oh, yeah?
Yes. Because some of the people doing this are well educated, even educated in the West, in the best Ivy League colleges. And yet once they get back to Africa, instead of implementing the right things, see what they do. But you look at some countries like Botswana, for example, which I would say is really doing well.
Speaking well.
Look at Ghana. Ghana is getting out of its past and it's doing well. So I think we should not blame the West for our failings. Some of our failings are just greed. I mean, how do you as an individual amass so much wealth in a poor country, and until the kind of money you're playing with is more than what Safaricom is playing, and then we are supposed to clap for you. That kind of situation, there's something wrong. And if, as a people, those are the people we look at for leadership, then we'll never get anywhere. Yeah. You realize the other day we lost former President Mkapa of Tanzania. One of the things people have been saying is that he never acquired illicit wealth. In fact, he's modest.
Right.
And that's the kind of leadership we want. This idea that to be a leader, you must be extremely rich. Is what's messing us up.
Is it not what the society has placed it to be?
No, that is what,
how do you go back to the society?
That's what these people,
a poor person.
That's what these people have created the society to believe.
To believe. Okay.
Such that good leadership within the society, just because that person does not have means, they don't listen to that person, and yet perhaps that's the person they need. So it's these people, the leadership, who use wealth to climb to leadership. They have created that scenario, which is very unfortunate.
All right, SG, I was bringing this analogy to bring us to this particular point, that there have been allegations that there's a hand that is, actively involved in separating the Mlembe Nation, separating Ford Kenya Party in particular as it stands. Would it be misplaced to say so?
That's misplaced. That's exactly what I've been saying.
Okay.
You know, people who think that there must be somebody who brought in money to Ford Kenya to do ABCD. You know, that's thinking that we, members of Ford Kenya who decided to change the leadership, have got no brain.
Right.
That somebody just brought money.
Okay.
You know, that kind of transactional mentality.
They are complaining that delegates were flown in, I mean, at this time of COVID-19.
But wait a minute.
Yes.
How much is it if you've got 26 people who want to come into Nairobi, and you find that it's cheaper to actually get them on a flight here than to put them on the road?
Right.
Why do they think it's difficult? I mean, would they imagine that? You see, if they're comparing with the choppers that they hire, then that can be expensive. But this is a fixed wing. A fixed wing is much, much cheaper.
Right.
So it's just a perception that they are trying to create because that's the life they know. They don't know that people can be committed to a cause and actually achieve that cause.
Right.
With pulling resources together. Like I was very shocked when they started blaming Atwoli. Just because we were in a meeting.
We had a meeting, yes.
Home.
Yes.
But Atwoli didn't even know
that
there was anything
in plans of the coup. But it happened right after that meeting.
In fact, we left that meeting early.
Without having told him?
No, but yeah, we didn't tell him.
Okay.
Because we were coming to receive our delegates. So we left that meeting early. He also got to hear of it when we had already done it.
So what is this thing that was picked that is key towards, the Mulembe unity in this particular meeting, the Kajiado meeting?
In this meeting, if you remember, we are looking at the issue of development programs in Western and what is ailing Western. One of the main things ailing Western is poverty. And one of the things we identified as the cause of that poverty is the failure of the sugar industry.
Right.
So we had to craft a way of rescuing the sugar industry so that it can at least start giving people an income so that they have something on the table. Because that poverty is very dangerous.
How can we tell the people that this has got nothing to do with politics, this has got nothing to do with campaigns? Because it looks like it's perennial every other time. Leaders will come with that.
You cannot separate economics from politics.
Oh, right?
Yeah.
So campaign tool?
Economics and politics
they go hand in hand. So what is the guarantee that after 2022, because it's obviously then that the people will assume that this is a card that is being dished out courtesy of 2022.
You see,
right?
If I'm dishing out goodies to you as an individual,
it doesn't matter
to go home
your aid goal.
That doesn't help.
All right.
This is a situation where we are saying this is a community. They rely on the sugar industry. So let's ensure that the sugar industry is working so that each of them, through their own sweat, can actually do their cane farming and get some income.
Why was there no extra effort to incorporate all, and I mean all the Western leaders?
They were all invited.
Why was there no extra effort?
No, you can only do an effort up to a certain point. You can't go and pull somebody from his house and tie him and bring him to the meeting. If he has been invited and doesn't show up, this
romance between Moses Wetangula and ANC leader Musalia Mudavadi.
I would say this is for Musalia.
Right.
I think they're saying that show me your friends and I'll know who you are. I think you better take it very seriously.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a way that in this case one can root him out as a kingpin? Looks like he's the kingpin as it stands.
I've just told Musalia that they're saying that show me your friends and I'll know who you are. Musalia had better take that very seriously.
Okay.
Yeah.
From that meeting, would you gather that the Mulembe Nation is ready to move forward together?
Mulembe Nation has been ready to move forward ever since. In fact, the Mulembe Nation, by the way, does move together. It's the leaders who are divided. Let me give you an example. In 2002, they voted 96% for Kibaki. In 2007, the Bukusu side voted to a man for Kibaki, the rest voted to a man for Raila.
Right.
Come 2013, they voted for Raila. Come 2017, the same. So this thing of division of the Luhya nation is about the leaders. It's not about the common man. The people look at who inspires them, and that's the person they vote for.
That is democracy?
Yeah, that's democracy.
Something that has been painted as democracy within the Mulembe Nation?
Well, yes.
Will that be our eventual
It has also been misused.
Yes.
It has also been misused in the sense that right now in the Mulembe Nation, you find some MPs who won on Jubilee ticket. When you look at the ground, there's no MCO of Jubilee.
Right.
It starts raising questions. And then people say, the Mulembe Nation are always democratic. You see, you find that you have been robbed, but you are told no because you are democratic.
Yeah.
So it has been misused to an extent.
So have the people of Mulembe Nation realized this?
Yeah, they realize.
And?
But as the Swahili say, Mnyonge hana haki.
All right.
Yeah.
In this case, Mulembe is Mnyonge?
Because of the poverty. Because of the poverty levels.
Holds the numbers. There's power in numbers.
Yes, but the poverty levels are astounding. Are astounding. You know, in a situation where somebody tries so hard in a rural area to actually put food on the table.
All right.
Because the poverty levels are just too high.
Are they not taking advantage of the numbers that they have to change this?
Apart from the poverty levels, if you look at the unemployment index in the country, you'll find that in the Mulembe Nation, it's much higher than anywhere else.
Should we face
and
off
then when you look at the quality of jobs that they hold, those who have jobs, if you look at the quality of the jobs that they hold, they're actually menial, the lowest of the low. So there is a problem in the Mulembe Nation.
The leadership has failed the people?
It's a leadership failure. It's a leadership failure. And also, I would say, something that has been sort of made so that the Mulembe Nation believe that they are lower than everybody else, which is very unfortunate.
SG, let's take a short break.
We need to craft a situation whereby we start pulling the Mulembe Nation out of the quagmire that they are in.
With the same old leaders that have been there for years without
They
reforms?
can't. That's why we are removing some of them.
All right, Secretary General, let's take a short break on this one. Important that we invite you to be part of this discussion. The numbers to call down on your screen. The SMS short code is also right there. Hashtag Morning Cafe at Linda_Alela at TV47KE. Our Twitter handles. Let's get to hear what you have to say, the questions that you have for Mheshimiwa this morning. After this break, we're right back with more. going to be some changes that eventually would lead Mulembe Nation at the top of the seat. They say that they've been part of the table for the longest of time, but not on the high table. I do not know. They say that they've played second fiddle for the longest of time. They've been briefcase carriers, and it is enough. 2022, do you foresee a scenario where we'll have a Mulembe leader at the top of the hill?
That's what we would like for. That's what we will all go for. But you see, we are also part of the nation of Kenya. So just alone as the Mulembe Nation, you cannot ascend to the top seat.
And you talked about this, which is pretty much important. You talked of the division that we witnessed there, courtesy of the numerous tribes that we have. But we also have a scenario, almost a close scenario in Mount Kenya region, almost the same thing in the Kalenjin region. Why is it that it is different from them? Let's pick this phone call first of all, Mushi. We're going to come back to you. John Kwirui, good morning. We lost him? We lost him. All right, I hope he calls back.
What I said is that there are 18 sub-tribes.
Yes.
They are not the cause of the division. Remember when I started, I said that constituency I represent, Tongaren, has got all of them because it's a settlement scheme. And we actually work together. So there's no division as such. But outsiders use that to try and divide. But usually it doesn't work because come the election time, you find that they actually vote in one direction. So the people themselves are actually united. Despite the many multiplicity of sub-tribes, just like say the Mijikenda, they are all together, although they are called Mijikenda. That's 9 sub-tribes. The same thing with the Mulembe Nation. So I think this is a situation where people have tried to exploit that, but it doesn't always work. But they use it so that when they have played some funny games with the votes, then they say, you see, they are democratic, they are divided, and so on. But really, when you look at it, okay, let's take the example of Kakamega County, which has got...
Allow me to pick this phone call, and then we come back to that. Good morning, Wafula Kalistas.
Good morning to you, Linda.
Thank you so much for calling in.
Hello.
Yes, thank you so much for calling in. Let's get to hear your sentiments on the same.
Kwanza, salimia mheshimiwa sana.
Msalimika. We're not able to hear him well. Kindly raise the volume for us. Yes?
No.
Yes. Right.
Two things about Mulembe Nation and how we need to revive industry in our western region. Something that all of us will support.
Right.
I also want to agree with him that we need to, when we discuss about politics, we need to engage other people across the country for us to be able to compete at national level. That one I agree with him 100%. And the reason why we have issues in Western Kenya is the likes of Moses Wetangula, people who are selfish. Just imagine the Secretary General of Kenya is new, but by default because at that time he was the only elected MP. Then the organizing secretary is Mandumandu, the PA for Moses Wetangula. Shows how selfish this guy he is. Therefore, I support the conversation of transforming for Kenya leadership so that this party becomes a party of national. Pia ningependa kumweleza kwamba tumeongea vizuri kuhusu Dr. Muhisa Kitui. Mtu ambaye pia Wakenya wengi sio sisi tu watu wa magharibi. Most of Kenyans are saying that if Muhisa Kitui comes in, we'll be able to celebrate also at least we get someone else competing the people that we are used to. Sasa mimi ningependa kumwambia Mheshimiwa Iseli tuko na wewe kabisa. About ukaja politics za Wetangula.
Right.
Hao ni watu wanataka kufuta kwa watu wengine. Msalia tumekuwa na yeye anasema whenever wanaona watu wengine wanakuja wamekuwa ni watu wenye wana division in Western Kenya region. Na ningependa kuambia Mheshimiwa Iseli ya kwamba si lazima sisi wote tushikane. Kuna watu tutatembea nao, kuna watu watakataa. Lakini what will be very much important is when our people realize that here there is someone. Whether wana contest watu 100 kutoka Western, we don't care. Because unaweza contest na upate kura mbili. We have millions of votes in Western region. Therefore, we are telling Mheshimiwa to continue with the fight, and we support him. Yeye ni MP wangu kutoka nyumbani. I know what he has done. Ni mtu ambaye alileta maendeleo, na pia tunamsupport kupigania haki ya watu wote. Sio tu haki ya watu magharibi. Nimemwona in TV several times that he comments on issues of national importance. He's a very simple person to support it. But here, in future, we want to go progressive. And I tell me it's very progressive. And the way he has advanced changes in Fort Kenya Party, I really support it. Let Wetangula retire. If he doesn't retire, we make sure that we reject him at the ballot boxes. Na mimi najua ya kwamba hata Moses Wetangula saa hii hiyo kiti yake ya senator itakuwa ngumu sana kupata, because ni watu wamezoea kutanganya watu. Saa hii anapigana kwa sababu wameona wanataka kutoa kama party.
Thank you. All right, thank you so much, Wafula Kalistas. Looks like money has been poured in this case. Wafula Kalistas have support sana.
No. I think you see what I said is people had sort of despaired.
Yeah.
They despaired about the party. So of course, once we instituted the changes, they have now got the confidence back. And actually, when you go out there, the number of people roaring to come back into the party is astounding. You just find, so we've actually done a disservice to these people.
Okay.
So it's like, for example, for me, I would drive myself. I would go into a supermarket in Kitale, for example, because my home is nearer Kitale than Bungoma.
Yeah.
And I would and nobody. But this time I can't. The moment I get to a supermarket, it's the whole crowd is out there.
Yeah.
So that's the sort of inspiration that people have got. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's come to NASA coalition, and this is probably what could be informing the togetherness that we witness between these key leaders within the NASA coalition. That is Moses Wetangula, or Moses Masika Wetangula, and Mudavadi. I guess we have to pick this phone call, Mheshimiwa, again, and then come back to you. Dennis, good morning. Good morning, Dennis. We're not able to hear Dennis. Hello?
Morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
Briefly, what are your comments or
how are you?
This? Yes, how are you?
First of all, I want to greet the Mheshimiwa. Habari Mheshimiwa.
Salama.
Yes, proceed.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, Dennis. Proceed.
Habari Mheshimiwa.
Salama, labda yako.
Habari Mheshimiwa.
Amesikia anasema salama. I guess there's some bit of some tweak right there. As we fix that, we'll come back to you, Dennis. But yes, coming to this, the NASA coalition and the hiccups that are ongoing right now, what could have informed the togetherness that we witnessed between these key leaders today? I mean, what way forward? Is it there? Is it in existence still?
I think they lost the plot at some point.
Are you not part of it?
No, but I tried to advise the best I could.
Yeah.
When they fell out with Raila after the handshake, my advice to them was, if you feel that we can do this on our own, why don't we have a parliamentary group meeting between Wiper, ANC and Fort Kenya so that we chart our way forward? Because it looks like ODM has gone their way.
All right.
They just went round and round in circles. It never happened. And they lost it that time. Because if they really wanted to capture the Kenyans' imaginations that they're actually progressive leaders who can make a change, that was the time to show how brave they are. But they couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So now trying to come together, especially for Western, it's neither here nor there.
Right.
I think they lost it at that point.
Okay.
So they need to go back to the drawing board and check carefully where the rain started beating them. And as I said earlier, my advice to Musalia still stands. Show me your friends.
And I'll show you who you are.
We'll know who you are.
All right. And why is it that you guys have an issue with Wiper joining Jubilee after realizing that maybe, yes, NASA is no longer there, is no holding any water?
I think Wiper is charting their own course. We've got no problem with that.
What about
the only difference is that the coalition agreement that was entered into is that NASA will collapse if 3 parties pull out.
Yes.
So even if Wiper were to go their way, NASA would still not collapse.
Are you not saying that
3 parties to walk out?
But you were saying that they should relinquish the positions of minority positions for that matter.
If they form a coalition, another coalition, they cannot exist in 2 coalitions. If they form another coalition with Jubilee, then it's
what would be the legal way then for them to be to step out on this one?
They just step out of NASA and form that coalition. And if once they do that, then they'll have to leave the positions because those positions belong to NASA.
All right. So it is misplaced.
Like if you realize the deputy minority leader, Mbui, has been very clear. He has said they are ready to relinquish those positions once they form the coalition with Jubilee.
Okay. So again, you maintain your stand that maybe ODM party leader Raila Odinga is not perpetually dividing the Mulembe Nation?
I don't think so. It's the person who is trying to take over from Raila Odinga who is dividing the Mulembe Nation. Okay. That's William Ruto.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
It was on record.
Because I don't understand why they think lawyers are so stupid that we now, if Raila has been leading getting the majority of the Luya vote, now we remove him and replace him with Ruto. What's that?
The division revenue bill, I think the division of course, revenue across the counties has come back again. And talk again, or speculations are that, Raila really wants the Mulembe Nation to lose out on this.
How is that?
That's the question.
How is that? Because the division of revenue, whatever that has brought a lot of controversy, actually gives population higher weight. So in that process, therefore, the counties of Western will benefit because they'll get a higher allocation.
But Vihiga in particular?
It has been looked at wrongly.
Right.
If the BBI goes through and we devolve 35% to the counties, actually the counties that are arguing that they will lose will not have lost because they'll still have a higher allocation.
Right.
Then there is the equalization fund, which needs to be operationalized. In fact, that's the one they should be chasing after, to get the equalization fund operationalized. It should be able to compensate for any revenue losses that they will have in the so-called marginalized counties.
Your expectation for today's session in regards to addressing this?
My expectation is that devolution is about people. It's about people. It is unfair that somebody in a county, a populous county, let's say Kakamega County, gets, if you go shilling for shilling, that individual in Kakamega is therefore getting something like 5,000, while that individual in a place like Mandera is getting 12,000. If you compare, that is not that's not equity.
That's not fair.
That's not equity.
So what would be the best?
I think if there are any teething problems in this formula, they should pass it. Then try and get the amendments done, because already they had amended it. The Senate had amended it.
Yes.
So how do you amend something? Then now at the time of passing, again you refuse to pass it. Then why were you amending it?
Okay.
Yeah. So there is double standards here by the Senate. And I think
do you suppose this will affect the BBI?
It
proponent of it?
It shouldn't.
It shouldn't.
It shouldn't.
What if it does?
Well, if it does, that will be very unfortunate, because many of us are looking forward to the BBI to be able to correct some wrongs that are in the Constitution. Because when we passed this Constitution in 2010, we said that it is 80% good, 20% we need to change it. The others who said, let's change the 20% first before we pass it. Others said, let's pass it, then change the 20%. I think now is the time to address the 20% through the BBI.
Okay, on the professional perspective, what would be your ratings, or what would you say about how we have dealt with COVID-19 as a country as it stands right now? And in this case, in comparison to what is happening, with Tanzania or our neighbors, Tanzania, Uganda, and all that.
If you look through the history of epidemics or pandemics, it's difficult to say who got it right, because usually this catches people unawares, and especially when you've got no cure. And it's like this one is viral, so getting a cure is difficult. Usually, it's difficult to judge who has got it right and who has got it wrong. I think it's a test of the health services. It's a test of the health services because remember, UK with very good health services, the NHS system, has still faced a lot of problems, yet they have got one of the best healthcare systems. America, with its skewed healthcare system, has had serious problems.
Right.
I think what we need to do is we need to relook at our healthcare system. That is critical.
Right.
We need to relook at our healthcare system because if we don't relook at our healthcare system, it has already, the problems have been pointed out for us. So it's, in fact, I've been saying that I don't envy His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta.
Right.
He's the president at a very difficult time.
Yeah.
A time when locusts come in, when you're trying to deal with the locusts, COVID comes in, the economy is crashing,
Yeah.
and you know, and here are people, not quite ready to come together as a nation and pull together. I think he's a president at a most difficult time in the history of this country. So it's not easy. Because
Then brings me to this question.
even medical experts,
Yeah.
you find them changing. Even WHO, you found them changing their advice.
Yeah.
Because this is a new thing. So as it evolves,
Sheer guesswork.
yeah, as it evolves,
Yeah.
you find, so this is the issue. So everything is new.
Right.
It's not an easy thing to say, we got it right or we got it wrong. Because also, if you put lockdown, your economy crashes.
Right.
It's about people's livelihoods. Yet, you don't put lockdowns, you are losing
You're
people.
losing people.
So you are caught between
It's a delicate balance.
a hard
rock
place
and a
and
hard
yeah.
place, yeah.
So it's a difficult balance to play. So right now, I think the most we can do is to advise people that frequent travels from the urban centers to the rural areas
Yeah.
should be minimized.
Right.
So because most of the elderly live in the rural areas.
Yeah.
So we should minimize those trips so we don't infect those ones who are more vulnerable. So it's a very dodgy situation. That you need experts on it day and night, and they keep on changing their views so that if the advice today is different, tomorrow it might be different, and then people say, these people can't make up their mind. No, it's something new. And you see, it's happening at a time when global travel had become such a wide thing.
Right.
That's why it managed to spread throughout the globe. Yeah.
Okay, well, I have a program called Pledge Watch, and I'm looking forward to host you on the same. But before it gets to that point, do you suppose the people of Tongeren or the citizen of Tongeren constituency are well represented? They feel like they elected the right leader in the member of parliament and have received what it is that they would have wanted to receive from him?
Well, I think I would say that I've done my best.
Yeah.
I've dedicated my time to serving the people of Tongaren, and I continue doing so. Definitely in an elective position, you cannot say that you are 100%, but wherever there is an issue, I try to solve it. And as I said earlier, I concentrate on community benefit, not individual benefit.
Right.
Because if you go for individual benefit, then you'll not be able to satisfy everybody. But if you go for community benefit, then the community will be able to benefit more. Of course, I come from one of the agricultural rich areas of Bungoma County and this country. So when agriculture is not taken seriously by the national or county governments, then my people suffer more. Because they are agriculturalists, they grow maize, now they are growing sugarcane, and we are trying to diversify, get back to dairy and issues like that. So that you find that when agriculture is neglected, then Tongaren suffers the brunt of it.
Right.
So we try as much as possible to ensure that the agricultural output can sustain the people. Because if one can sustain their family from agricultural activities and still have something to spare, that's my prayer.
Fair enough. We expand that some more on my program that is a Pledge Watch. Why are you not positioning yourself as that figure or that person who will be the kingpin of Mulembe Nation, and you're fronting others?
Well, I would say that, as I said from the beginning, my constituency represents all Kenyans.
Okay.
Apart from the 18 Mulembe Nation sub-tribes, all the other Kenyans
extend
are there.
that one. Extend that one to
and I've always argued that if people want to see how people can live together in peace and work together in peace, they should just come to make a visit to Tongaren. They'll find how we live, and that should serve as an example. When you say placing yourself, I've never believed in that kind of situation because I believe in the Swahili saying that kibaya chajitembeza.
Chema chajiuza.
Yeah.
So, you have to declare. You have to declare for you to get support. Just like you declare that you are interested in a member of.
If I get to that point that I want to move to another position, I will do so. But as for now, there are some pledges I did to the Tongaren people, and there are remaining about 2 things I haven't fulfilled yet, which I need to fulfill. After I've fulfilled those, I'll believe that I can now say, okay, this is what I promised you, and this is what I've done for you. Now, could you let me look for something else?
All right.
Because I'm sort of committed that it would be wrong for me to pledge to do certain things.
Listen, thank you so much for your time this
Thank
morning.
you so much.
And also thank you so much for your feedback back at home. There's so much that needs to be addressed, but because of time, we won't be able to do that because we have a different segment coming up altogether. And that's what we'll be delving into after this short break. Thank you so much once again. It was great having you. We look forward to have more and more of this session. And we're coming back with more after this short break. from that basic point. Cynthia Wambui, you are a marriage and relationship coach. How does it feel to see these reports that are out here that divorce is on the rise, especially this time of COVID-19?
All right, thank you. Thank you for having me. And yes, it's pretty alarming when we are looking at crisis happening in the midst of this global pandemic.
Yeah.
It is a new reality. It's become our new normal.
Mm-hmm.
And so what would happen is that we need to look at it as just as we are managing all the other crises in society, we need to manage love and relationships amidst the pandemic.
All right. So have you had an experience, with couples coming to you to report this now that you're a coach, or have you seen cases? Do you have notable cases of divorce that you've handled?
All right. I have seen quite a number of couples who are in crisis. And if the crisis continues, it can lead to separation and divorce. I'm not going to say that between March and now that I've seen couples who have become divorced because of this. But I know that if the crisis, if the information that we're getting is not adequately taken care of, it's not adequately resolved, it can lead to separation and divorce. So definitely there's been quite a bit of information coming to us, couples in duress and distress because of the pandemic. And we're going to discuss some of the reasons why and what we need to do as families and as a people to mitigate that.
Mm-hmm. So what types of crises are we looking at, or are we talking about, before I loop in Skyvy Ken?
All right, let me tell you something. When for our nation, Kenya, is it March 13th, we had the announcement. Most of us thought it was going to be maybe 1 week, 2 weeks, and then we returned back to normal. And so what happened is that in the midst of not knowing, there's no planning that has taken place. So one of the things that I've come to realize is that because there's no plan, what happens is that if we do not have a plan, we actually do plan to fail. And so there's a lot of communication issues. When you have people put together in a confined spaces and there's no real future, we do not have a real plan ahead of us as to what does money look like, because money will become one of our stressors. Okay, what does it look like for our children? We are in this space, our children, that communication becomes a major crisis. Then when it comes to conflict, we're going to have a downward spiral. There's a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear. And with fear comes, a false sense of, of panic and duress. That by itself, how we cope up as human beings and how we relate with others is also going to be magnified to a major proportion. And so with that in mind, and now we are looking at a couple of months into it, so the couples who probably had issues before, and the issue was under the carpet, has now been pronounced 100 times over. And so what happens is that all these things that were under the carpet, chini ya maji, are now above surface and screaming, hey, we need help.
We're here and we have to be addressed. All right, let's leave it at that first and loop in Skyvy Ken. Skyvy Ken, before we even get to have you guys share your experiences, if at all you're philanthropic enough, you deal a lot with young turks, with youths. Have they shared their experiences to you? I know there's not much of activities ongoing in terms of meeting and everything, but I'm sure they are always willing to confide in you, speak to you on phone and everything. What are their experiences? What are some of the key issues that they're going through right now?
Thank you, Linda. Now, you realize that one of the things that makes relationships possible is the element of being able to meet every now and then. And just as you mentioned, when the lockdown came, there was a lot of separation between people. And I think this is where the test of patience came in, There are people who are only attached to others just because I can see you, but it's not something that I have decided from my heart that, you know, this is the person I want to stay with.
Yeah.
And also to talk about the issues of money, just as my co-host has talked about, you know, there are people who only use money to define their relationships. You know, this is the much I have, so this is the value I have in this relationship.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, during this pandemic, you know, that money probably has gone into other things, into other expenses, or is not even there. So sometimes the definition of what works right now has really changed. And I have seen so many young people get into turmoil, and because they don't have anybody to guide them through that, or the wisdom they thought they had is not working in this pandemic. So just to say, this has really changed so many relationships, especially from the young people that I interact with.
This has also become disastrous, so to speak, because of the cases that we witnessed today on the social ills that are happening as Skyvy Ken. Look at the numerous cases of, you know, teenage pregnancies for that matter. I would want to believe that, you know, well, while there could be others that are cases of rape, others that are cases of, you know, just random meetings, and, you know, you meet this person and before you know it, something has happened and it has led to that. But also in most cases that you find, these are girls who probably have, you know, have relationships with the men around there. And then it has gotten to that point where there's plenty of time at your disposal. There's plenty of time togetherness, together, such that these occurrences are taking a center stage. How do we get to control that and ensure that we maintain discipline? That is okay. You could be in a relationship, but, you know, there needs to be some little bit of caution exercise to ensure that we also protect the lives of these girls.
One of the things that has happened for a long time, parents have avoided the conversation of relationships. So they never talk these outright with their children. So during this time, there has been a lot of freedom, you know. People can do whatever they want. There is no school, you know, to regulate the discipline of these young people. So they go out there without any counsel, without nobody having given them a background of what relationship is and what it costs, the consequences, the good part of being in a relationship and all these things. So they go out with their own knowledge. They go out with their own wisdom, and unfortunately, it lands them in the wrong place. And yes, I agree. We have so many teenage pregnancies, and I know so many people might want to, you know, brush off the statistics, but it is true. So many young people are irresponsibly out here doing relationships in the wrong way, and doing things not in the right time. So many people I have seen, even my friends, some people I have seen also and talked to somewhere. Unfortunately, during this time, they have messed up a lot of things. Others have even got into drug abuse, and it's a conversation that needs to continue. We need to guide these young people. One of the challenges I have seen, some parents have not been there. They have not been active parents to their children. So what they did, they went to boarding schools, they deposited their children there, and they have allowed the school system to dictate who their children will become. So there is no that relationship between the parent and the young person. So unfortunately now, when we do not have school ongoing, the reality of who your child is outside school is being manifested. So
does it then make dating, allow me to come in, does it then make it dangerous for people to date at this time of COVID-19? Because, I mean, reality is that, again, there are also new formed relationships as it stands right now. You're meeting this lady, or you've been home for the longest of time, you never knew that there's this beautiful guy there, and now you start up a relationship. Does it make it dangerous?
Very dangerous, because you don't just get into relationships because you feel like you want to. There is something that, you know, triggers you and tells you now we need to relate with somebody else. And it goes back to the book of Genesis. Allow me to make it a bit scriptural. You know, God created Adam and he said it is not good for Adam to be alone. It's not good for this man to be alone. And the context there is not about being single. It's about being unique and complete. For a long time, we've interpreted single to mean I don't have somebody, but that is not the essence of being single. Being single means that I am complete and, you know, I am self-sufficient. So God said it's not good for this guy to be alone. He needs a helper. So unfortunately, just because I don't have somebody within me, if that triggers me to look for somebody or to look for a woman so that I can date, then that mere fact of getting into that relationship for that reason is very detrimental and might bring other issues that are not even prepared for in the future.
All right, coming back to you, Cynthia, crimes of passion. suicide cases, issues cropping up, mental issues cropping up, courtesy of the difficulties that people are witnessing right now during the pandemic in terms of dating, in terms of marriage, the relationships at large. What should be done to ensure that there's a balance that is struck on this? Because it's important that you have these people in the best of mind, in the best of shape. And a majority of people will tell you they're not emotionally stable to, first of all, stand the distance that comes along with this, emotionally stable to stay away and not have intercourse for all this, time. Some of them will tell you that they're not stable enough just to be close to their partners, like you had said earlier on, at this time of COVID-19. So where then does, coaching, mentorship come in to ensure that there is a balance that is struck on this?
That's a very, very good question. One of the greatest things that we now know as a lesson learned is that as a community, as a people, we need to be able to consistently train and equip ourselves in the midst of any type of crisis, all right? Yeah. So one of the greatest things that we need to do is to actually empower the people and train them about how to cope in the midst of a crisis, in the midst of changes, because all of us, we may not cope very well when change happens. Right. And when change happens, how have we trained and equipped ourselves? So in the schools, are we equipping our students and teaching them and ensuring that they have the support networks and the support systems that are readily available within the community? It is something that needs to be done effectively and efficiently as possible. Do we have within our counties toll-free numbers, or even people that actually in the hospitals and in the police stations that we can walk up to and be able to receive on-time help? That I am in a crisis, I mentally, physically, emotionally, I'm not okay. How can I be able to get that? It's anonymous, it safeguards my family, safeguards my job. We need to be able to start to think in that manner. Because what happens is that there's stigma when it comes to depression. There's stigma when I say that, I'm not coping well with my husband, I'm not coping well with my children. There's a stigma, especially because we shy and put down people who are feeling depressed and feeling low. We say, no, get over it, shake it off, do this, and what happens is that we make it. You've seen people being cyberbullied on the social media when they have put that they're not okay. You're seeing a lot of comedians saying, if they're not okay emotionally, how are we supporting our people, our children? And it has to start from the home front. What kind of conversations are we having in the job and the workforce? What kind of conversations are we having so that then we can be able to support people in the grassroots? It's not just enough for us to just put a toll-free number. Yeah. Can we also be able to have, different the conversations that are taking place in different places that talk about, okay, as a community, we are hurting. As a community, this crisis, there's too much crime. What are we doing to safeguard that? It's not enough to put people in jail and institutions just because they committed a crime. Let's safeguard that from the very beginning.
Okay, let's get to your experiences. I don't know whether you will allow me to, get a little bit personal, but I'd love to understand, because then, some questions coming here is that, what are they doing at this time, if at all they're in relationships, to handle this? Skyvik, and the last time we had a conversation at some point, you said, well, there was nobody. Has the status changed? Sorry for putting you on spot.
Better right now, we thank God.
Oh, it changed.
A bit.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So tell us, how are you keeping the flame burning?
Now, one of the things you realize is that we also have the government directives. One, we need to keep 1.5 meters apart. So some things have really changed. We are not able to do some things, hugging and... are
you serious, Skyvikin? Are you serious at all? Are you being genuine with us?
But you realize so many things that we used to do so freely right now cannot be done. And also when we have to spend some time together, the first question is, where have you been? who have you met with? Have you taken care of yourself? So it's not easy for us right now. And as we try to continue, one of the things we've put in place is, we have put love aside. Not that we've put the feelings aside, and we've allowed ourselves to define love as, care for each other and care for our loved ones, because there's no need for us to keep warm and feel warm with each other, only to lose our loved ones and, go meet your mom or your dad, and the next thing you hear, we are calling for a funeral. So we are trying to regulate how much we define as love and how much goes into taking care of our loved ones.
Yeah. All right, that's an interesting view right there. Coming to you, Cynthia, I am sure you're going to say this. I don't know whether this is your status or not, but I'm sure you'll agree with me that the scenario is totally different, in marriages, because after all, you have to go back home to your husband or go back home to your wife. What is your status, first of all?
I'm married. I'm married. Been married.
Tell us your experience.
Our experience is very interesting because my husband and I worked together. We have worked together for the last almost 7-8 years.
Okay.
So you can imagine, we for us after the pandemic, or even when we had the lockdown, we moved to the house and started working from home. So you can imagine that by itself is a new normal for us,
right? And
creates a new experience. So what we had to do is it starts to become intentional. Because it's very easy for us to then become mundane, every day, the same thing, same old. So what we've done is that we had to adjust how we communicate and create time for us as a couple, as a family, because we have 2 children who are needing our attention, and they are very much aware that there's a crisis. And they keep reminding us, Mommy, keep social distance, even
in the house.
They keep telling us, even in the house, keep social distance for me, and then we also have to create time for ourselves as individuals, because I'm an individual that needs time. So I have to create time for Cynthia, and Don has to create time for him, and be okay, giving ourselves permission to be okay with my 1 hour that is mine. It's not children's time, it's not hubby's time, it's mine. And I can do something that I really enjoy to do. And sometimes it's something that we have to do weekly.
Yeah.
And plan every week for ourselves. If not, what will happen is that you start to be on edge, become very irritable. You will snap. Because again, we are living in very interesting times when we are not socializing with the umati, with the whole world. And looking at our temperaments and our different personalities, I'm a very extroverted woman. So being in a very, space, I'm thinking, oh God, when is this going to end?
Right.
So we've learned to talk again. We've learned to talk differently to each other that accommodates ourselves. We've learned also how to fight well. And that's something I would like, to tell you, is that as couples, you learn to redefine your fight. Because conflict is going to be there. Conflict within a marriage relationship, a healthy marriage relationship, will have some sense of conflict. So we've learned how to fight fair and fight well within the midst of a happy, glowing, thriving relationship.
All right. Nice. Reality is that not everyone has such resilience. And coming back to Sky V. Ken, I mean, these people who would, I don't want to say they are special in any way, but have just different characters. Yes, they're in a relationship, but you find that they're 2 worlds apart. It's pretty much hard for one of them to just say, let's abide by these restrictions that have been given and it's okay. The other one to say humbly, okay, I accept, and I say it's okay. When time comes, things will be okay. So how do we get these people to that level ground, to that level whereby it's going to be a balanced affair within themselves as a couple?
I think one of the things I understand when people decide to come into a relationship, I don't like to call it falling in love. It's not just something that happens. It's a decision that you make. This is the kind of a person I want. This is people. This is how they do their thing, and I would want to commit to how they do their things. So it's possible that there are people who have different characters coming together, and I think one of the things that is happening right now is some ladies who love to ask for money. When they're asking for money right now, they are being told, "What's a tu corona ishe?" And even is not flying around here and there, and it becomes a bit tough. But there are things we call temperaments. There are people who are completely different. And so this becomes a very good time for people to get to know what I have, the principles, the standards I have. Am I willing to bend them so that I'm able to accommodate you? And your standards are too high. Are you able to bend them for me so that when we come together, we are able to coexist, we are able to do things together? One example is we have people who are very loyal to the rules of the country. We have others who are like, you know what, Corona is not even real. Do you know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who has it? So these two people, when they come together, you find that they might not be able to coexist very well, but there is a way they can be able to correct these. One might, because I don't know somebody who knows somebody, but how about if that somebody is you? So let's do whatever we have to do right now, but do it in the right way, and ensure that I don't put your life at risk, and I don't put my life at risk also.
All right, basic knowledge or the generals, because this would not necessarily apply to all of us, what it is that you're experiencing, what it is that you're going through. But there's always that professional approach. There's always that general approach to issues, to the situation as it stands right now. And that's the reason why we said, dating during COVID-19, just so we would get the basics. So coming to you, Cynthia, on a professional perspective, what are some of the key things that marriage couples would adopt? And of course, I'll come back to you, Ken, for the youngsters, what it is that they need to adopt at this time. I mean, remember, there are times where people have been locked away from their partners at that time of the lockdown, cessation of movement across different parts. And this is cutting across different parts of the global fraternity. So how do they get to just have the basics that will keep them going?
All right. One of the things that has been escalated at this point in time is the fact that there are couples who have been separated in the globe by time, and space, and it created a new crisis for them. So what we need to help these couples understand is that you can actually work within the confines of what you currently have. You probably have been at it for 6 months, plan for a year. So as a couple, begin to start to plan and put some boundaries and put some, a system around your relationship that helps you have some very tangible, biteable wins. What really helps is when you can have small, minimal wins every week that helps you feel, celebrated, you feel valued, you feel that everything is going to be okay between us. So how will you do that? You can plan your action plan when it comes to your communication as a couple. Be very intentional. What is it that we need to talk about as a couple every week that helps us feel heard, helps us feel a sense of value in terms of the two of us, and helps us feel a sense of also celebration of the things that we are doing very well and the things that we need to work on. Eat this elephant piece by piece, because this elephant is really big when it comes to communication, and it will help us also build the trust. Because what happens with time, we start to question, where is he? Where has he been? Who has he been with? Because of course there's this time that has been created, and if we don't want to communicate well, then trust is going to be breached. Then the other thing that we need to talk about is in the communication is, how are we doing in terms of our well-being, mental, emotional, spiritual well-being as a couple? If you are spiritually connected, how is your prayer life together? Are you learning how to put your trust and hope in God, if you believe in God? And how does that look like? Because it will be very easy for you to offload that and say, you know what, this belongs to God, and this is what you're going to put our trust in. Then there's also going to be, okay, what boundaries have we created as a family? All right, that makes us feel secure, that makes us feel whole. What are the things that we have agreed and have come into agreement? Then after all that is said and done, Linda, can we evaluate every month as a couple? Can we evaluate how we are doing and be able to even give ourselves a scorecard? Then next month we pick it up again and evaluate. And what happens is that we are actually creating some sense of synergy, some sense of well-being, a sense of hope within that relationship. And let me tell you, for the couples that we have helped do that, they come out feeling secure. They come out feeling a lot better. The ground is no longer shaking as much as when you've left them in the wind, you know? So, those are some of the things that I've seen work very well, Linda.
Okay, awesome. And before we even delve deep into what the youths or the young turks or the people who are in relationships, you know, with fiancés and all that can do, you are a public speaker, Skyvy Ken. And from what I gather, Cynthia says that communication is crucial. It is key. If this is not gotten well, or if this is not gotten in tandem, where does it likely ends, you know, this relationship?
One of the things that will come in when there is no good communication is, of course, there will be a lot of misunderstanding and a lot of false perceptions. I'll think of you in this way, then you'll think of me in that other way. When we don't meet, you'll think I'm not, I'm no longer in love with you. When I don't have all the free time we had previously, you'll start thinking I'm dating somebody else, or I've got somebody else who is stealing my attention. So I agree, communication is very key, and the lack of it will lead a relationship into turmoil, and people will start thinking the worst of each other, and where that leads, unfortunately, is people parting away, breaking apart. And you know how a breakup sounds, it's really painful. So communication is very key.
When you talk about communication and the timely aspect of it, because I am assuming, there's people who will tell you, I communicated after all. Well, this communication could have come in later, or communication would have come in a little bit earlier than expected. But according to them, after all, I communicated and I say what it is that I was supposed to do. When you look at the time factor in terms of how you communicate and, at what point you communicate, what crucial role does it play?
Now, time, when you communicate, time becomes very important and a very important factor, because sometimes when you communicate something today, it has a meaning, and when you communicate a year later, it has a totally different meaning. So communication needs to be, I would call it urgent. Let's communicate in time. If there's something I need to tell you today, let me not wait until 5 weeks later or 3 weeks later. That is when I'm telling you, because you might interpret it differently. One example is, for example, if I go somewhere and I meet somebody, that information might be very important for you today, because when I tell you 3 weeks later, it might really send a wrong signal. Why did you keep this information from me? Why did you not tell me at that time? So communicating in time is really important, and will make sure that a relationship thrives healthily.
What then would be the basics or the general, lessons that people should pick, or ways of handling this for the young Turks who are not married just yet, but are in serious relationships, some of them that could easily lead to marriage or a good thing? How do they get to stay afloat on a general perspective?
Now, one of the things that will come to play here is discipline. Discipline becomes very important. There's a picture that I saw flying around of a tortoise, and the tortoise came to a place and was like, I'm tired of this shell that I keep carrying. So the tortoise said, why don't I drop it and live like any other animal? And the caption there was that when the tortoise lost its shell, it's also lost its protection. So discipline at this time is very important. Freedom, too much freedom might make people make the wrong decisions and run too fast, and it's very important that we interpret time. Even David from the Bible says, Lord, teach me how to count my days, because when you are able to interpret time, you are able to make conscious and good decisions. Secondly, money. Young people don't have so much money. This is the time we're trying to save up. This is the time we are trying to define a few things in our lives financially. So when we have one party that does not understand the other party, and this time I'm not working, I need all your money to come into this relationship, so that you're not able to even take care of other things, that might lead to the relationship going south. The other thing is patience. I need to be patient with my partner. I understand these are tough times, and the freedom we had, all the money we had to do everything we used to do might not be there right now. As a young person, you need to be patient with this other person and understand, they're also going through tough times. And if you're able to agree and talk and come to an agreement, this is how we are going to run our things, this is how we are going to do our things, it might really help. Something else which is very important that we might not have talked about here is something called loss and grief.
Yeah.
I hate to say this, but there are people who have lost their loved ones already. And if this pandemic and the curve continues going as it is, we might continue to lose people.
Yeah.
So how we deal with loss and grief is very important. We need to understand each other. There are people who will deal with loss in a different way. They will just shut themselves out, and hide themselves for some time until they regain their strength to continue in this relationship. So it's very important that we understand this is how I deal with loss and grief. This is how you deal with it, and we are able to understand each other when that time comes. And so finally, understanding is very important.
Yeah.
I need to understand who you are and how you deal with things, especially during this time. And you need to understand how I also do and deal with things this time, so that, we don't sacrifice our relationship just because we don't understand each other. So understanding has its place in the thriving of all relationships, especially with the young people.
Speaking of which, you brought in the picture of, dealing with loss and all that. Cynthia, there are some of the people who've lost these relationships at this time, their breakups and divorces, like I said. What would be your advice in how best the couples or these people who've parted ways can handle this on a sober mind that would proceed to cause more harm than good?
Yes. And I like that Heidi Ken went ahead and brought it up, because this is the reality of life. Is that the cycle of life. There's going to be death. There's going to be babies that are currently being born in the midst of this pandemic. So life is still happening. And so one of the things is to realize that whatever happened in the season 1 and death happened in season 2. Prior to that, you probably had issues, you had problems, and divorce had happened. Is that learn to cope and get help. A lot of the people that I have seen have had help through counseling, because when you're going through separation and divorce, you definitely need to speak to somebody. It's like a death, a physical death. It's only that there's no physical closure when you have to put a body down in a grave. And so get therapy, get healing for yourself, for your physical body, for your emotional body, and for your spiritual body. And then create community. What happens is that when you're going through a pandemic that has separated us as a people, and then you're going through a second crisis of death or divorce, that creates another crisis for you. And what happens is it becomes dark and dreary. Let there be community that comes around you and give them permission to be able to stand with you, and give them the parameters on how you want them to stand with you. And allow that space to happen, and be willing and forgiving to yourself in the midst of what has happened. Give yourself permission to grieve. Give yourself permission to go through. The Bible says that you shall go through the valley of the shadow of death and fear no evil. You're going through this. You will overcome. You will get to the other side. You will not lose your mind. And you've got to give yourself permission to go through the valley of the shadow of death. Then last but not least, is that pray. I have found that even in the midst of crisis, being able to stand in prayer and say that, God, I do not know how to deal with this pain. I do not know how to deal with this rejection that I have experienced, this abandonment. I do not know how to deal with it. After all is said and done, surrender and say that, God, teach me how to deal with these circumstances and these issues. Right. And I have seen that at the end of the day, you will come out stronger. So those are the things that I would tell for the grieving couples, for grieving because of divorce or grieving due to loss of life. That would be, the crisis management at some point.
I would recommend.
Yeah.
All right, Skyvy Ken. So amid the lockdowns, amid the distance, the closure of activities, you probably are dating because you work in the same office, and then there's that distance that has officially been created by the turn of events. Then 3 months later on, or 2 months later on, or even 4 or 5 months later on, boom, you have met. Yes, you've been in constant communication. Yes, you've tried your level best to date and keep the flame ablaze, but here you meet. How do you handle the excitement? How do you ensure that you stay on course? How do you ensure that you love yourself to a point of ensuring that you care for yourself?
One thing that might happen, unfortunately, people might interpret the excitement and put a lot of things that need not to be there in these meetup. So I think people, when they meet up after all this separation and all this distance that has been there, one is that people need to talk about their experiences. How has it been for you? How has it been for me? What has stood out for you? What are the lessons we have learned? Because in everything, one of the things I agree is that there has to be a lesson. I am learning right now, and I'm sure also other people are learning how to deal with such a thing in the future. So that when we come together now, one of the things, what have you learned? How can we handle these differently in the near future? Secondly, it's good to define, where do we go from here? What time have we lost? What were we supposed to do between now and the time we have lost? How are we able to recover that, you know? And there might have been some things that will happen, and there are some messes that might be done. It's good to also take responsibility. I'm reminded of Adam. Adam is a very important character, an interesting character that I love to refer to. When God came and asked, what happened here? He did not take responsibility. He said, God, it is this woman that you gave me. Yeah. So I wish he took responsibility and said, you know what, God, we did this and this was our mess. Maybe it would have been dealt with differently. So it's good that we understand the language of taking responsibility. It's true, some things might have happened. I might have texted somebody and I might have met somebody and maybe that did not augur well with you. Take responsibility, let's explain, let's define what this is all about, and now let's put measures into place. This is how we are going to proceed from here. These are the goals we need to achieve between now and a certain time. This is my part in this is your part in this, so that we are able to move with moderation. There's a guy called Peter Stockman in one of the books, he said, proceed with moderation. So we need to proceed with moderation. And it's good also to get mentorship and get to hear from people who have done this successfully. Get to hear from people who have done these and, they have gone through such a time and such a difficult period and they've come out successfully. It's good to listen. It's good to be counseled and get to hear how things are done. Yeah. So when we meet up, when we get to share all these new moments again, when we get to do life again as we used to, we need to be able to put things in place. And let's not be carried away by the excitement so that 3 days or 4 days later, people are not pregnant because they have reconnected. Let's at least put measures together and be able to do life in the right way.
And you bring on board pertinent points on owning up to, your mistakes. And of course, that translates automatically to the aspect of forgiveness. It could be such a huge mistake that has been, done to you. And you sort of feel like, wow, I cannot get the heart to forgive. I cannot get the heart to just overlook that and move on with activities as possible, especially in the setup of marriage. Cynthia, the art of forgiveness, the art of owning up, how instrumental are they in this case?
Oh, wow. I read something earlier today that if you do not know how to forgive, do not get married.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, do not get
That's
married.
A good one.
Because marriage is a zone of offense.
Yeah.
You will thoroughly you will offend each other. You will, because like Kyrie Ken talked earlier about temperament. You're bringing these two people who have two separate temperaments. Temperaments are your personality. I have grown up from a different set of family with different rules. And this other person has grown up in a different set of family with different rules. And so what will happen is that offense is inevitable. It's going to happen. And when it happens, Have you talked about what it looks like when we offend each other and we have hurt each other? Is it that I will pack my bag every week because you've offended me, or am I going to lots of forgiveness? The art of forgiveness in my book is, it comes from the place of also communication. Do I understand where I'm coming from and where this other person is coming from? And what was the underlying issue?
Yeah.
You know, most of the times we are dealing with symptoms instead of getting down to the cancer of the problem.
Yeah.
And so then it will be then easy for us to be able to say, I forgive and I choose to forget. And, you know, there's remorse, there's repentance, I choose to forgive. Now, if it becomes then a reoccurring circumstance where, you know, you feel that, okay, that's when now you need to have mediation, get somebody, a third party, into the conversation. Is it something that can be taught and can be learned and can be adjusted? Because sometimes you find that the offenses we will have is because somebody has misunderstood the circumstances. Can it be taught? Can it be learned? Okay, before we move to stage 2 or stage 3 of the circumstances. And I have seen something, Linda. I have seen people who have gotten divorced, but at the same time have forgiven their spouses and forgiven themselves. And they have said, you know what, we cannot live together. The circumstances is that we are not able to live together, but I have forgiven you and I have forgiven myself for the decisions that I made in the midst of this relationship.
All right.
And that for me is great.
Is huge. So a clear point that, you know, if you forgive doesn't necessarily mean that you have to hold yourself right there if it feels uncomfortable. Skyvie Ken, in 30 seconds, we are winding up this session. It is obvious then that the face of dating will hugely be changed post-COVID-19, or even at this time, in what of the experiences that we're getting. How do we adapt to that as we wind up?
Let's get to define the terms right now. Let's get to define the relationship in a different way now.
Yeah.
This is the environment we are in. These are the circumstances surrounding us. This is how we are going to adapt. And this is how we are going to coexist and do this relationship in the right way. And above all, I'll keep saying, let's put God first. God ordered relationships. He's the one who saw Adam needed Eve, and so he's the one who sees Ken needs so and so. So let's put God first in our relationships, and you know, it's going to be lovely. It's going to be a good journey. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Skyvie Ken. Lastly, in 30 seconds, Cynthia, what would be your message to those ones who are just almost giving up on this relationship, almost giving up on this marriage? They're saying enough is enough.
I will call it the 3 Ds. Number 1, make the decision of choose to not make a decision at the point of a crisis. Any decision that you make during a crisis is usually not the best decision. Number 2, start to dream again. Go back to your dreams. What was the things that you dreamt about, the things that you hoped for? And then number 3, date. I just lost my track of thinking. Dare to hope, dare to dream, dare to speak your truth in love. And what will happen is that you will begin to accelerate and put back the system into motion.
Amazing. And on that very note, we say that's where we're going to wind up the program. I know there's so much to discuss on this, but all the same, I'm hopeful that you've picked something, or I'm hoping that you've picked something that is going to be of help to you at this particular time. We're all trying to figure it out, and I can almost guarantee you that if you put focus on it, you will certainly always get a way out of it, and we'll all emerge as victors and thankful for that scenario. Cynthia Wambui Otieno, Marriage and Relationship Court, and Skyvie Ken, who's an author and a speaker. Thank you so much for the great insights this morning. That's where we get to wind up Morning Cafe's lifestyle segment. We're all about dating at this time of a pandemic. You can always grab this conversation or continue with the conversation on our social media platforms. Morning Cafe, that is hashtag Morning Cafe. You drop, of course, you get to see this on YouTube, that is TV47, our Periscope at TV47KE, or on TV47 on Facebook. That is, thank you so much for the great insights. Thank you so much for your feedback. See you again tomorrow, next time. Same time, same place. My name is Linda Lela. do enjoy the rest of your day.